The Promise Maker. By George Fitzgerald. Part of this book was first published as a short story in George Fitzgerald's book, The Manuscripts, in 2009. Copyright George Fitzgerald 2019. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, electronic, mechanical photocopying or otherwise, without the prior written permission of George Fitzgerald, the copyright owner. Any person who does any unauthorized act in relation to this publication may be liable to criminal prosecution. Art and cover design, George Fitzgerald. This version was edited by George Fitzgerald. Proofread by Shaffelin and Sandra Fitzgerald. Laid out by Open Press Limited. Printed by Sprint Print, Ireland. Print ISBN. All the characters in this book are fictitious, and any resemblance to real persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. Book 1. Chapter 1. Alfie rang. Kitty had died. I'm sure if you haven't read the book, The Secret Life of Ashley Brown, you're wondering who Kitty and Alfie are, and who I am. In Chapter 4 of my book, The Secret Life of Ashley Brown, I presented myself to the reader this way. My name is Ashley Brown, but everyone calls me Ash, the name by which I introduced myself to you earlier. I grew up in a good neighborhood, not far from the coast, surrounded by open plan gardens and delicate flowers. My childhood was sweet. When I reached my teenage years, I didn't have the hang-ups most kids do because life didn't offer any. Mam was Mam, well-dressed, well-mannered, and well-meaning. Dad was an upstanding member of our close-knit community, having his golf on the weekends, his chess on Mondays and his gardening group midweek. Being the second oldest of 4 girls, I guess you could say I had it easy. To top it off, I was, if you don't mind me saying, good-looking. Beautiful would be too strong a word, attractive would say it right. My hair was blonde. I had blue eyes and a well-figured body that came with a package on my arrival to this planet. The other thing was, I was growing things from the age of 10, that's when I noticed boys staring at me. I remember asking Mam about this, and she remarked, "It's your eyes, my dear, you have lovely like this eyes." I was an average kid who wanted to hang out with my friends, have a laugh and flirt with the boys. So that was life, college, tennis, swimming, not forgetting the annual European holiday. I loved painting. It was my main hobby as a child that I carried into my adult life. I considered doing my master's in fine art, but Mam ruled against it. Finishing my education, I found a great job and moved into an apartment, only 10 minutes drive from my parents' home, a closeness they requested. Although I embraced my work, my ideal role was to become a book editor in a publishing house. My dream manifested. However, other stuff developed with it. That's a long story. What I will tell you is, I met Frankie and Pitbull and together we went searching for Frankie's father's identity. That is another tale we'll get back to later. During my youthful days in London, I bumped into the lovable rogue, Alfie. Kitty was the Irish woman who cared for me when I hit rock bottom there. Well, I didn't hit rock's bottom, rock bottom hit me. In the last line of my book, The Secret Life of Ashley Brown, I wrote how I received a call from Alfie. He told me Kitty died. I was sad to hear Kitty passed away, but Alfie's voice was a joyful remedy. The funeral mass took place at 10 o'clock in the Church of Our Lady of Dolours, Botanic Road. Later they'd take her to rest in Glasnevin Cemetery. The church was overflowing. They showed up to celebrate the life of Kitty O'Shea. Kitty devoted her time to helping the less fortunate. A native of Glasnevin, she had lived in England for 2 decades. Her story appeared in the regional newspaper after her passing, under the headline, "Local Hero Comes Home." Inside the church, my husband sat to my right. Our son Dean Jr. sat to my left. Frankie and Pitbull sat behind, as moral support. Is it nearly over, ma'am? Not yet. What's up with him? Queried my husband. Nothing, he's fine. Are you sure? Yes, he's grand. Is it over now? Dean, be quiet. Pitbull tipped his shoulder and playfully raised his fist. Dean Jr. smiled, got the idea and shut his mouth. My mind journeyed to London and into the bedroom where Alfie and I conversed. Isn't it surprising how some memories stay with you while others vanish like smoke in the wind? It's never a thing or an event, it is always a person. People that cross your path and don't leave, secret companions locked away in your memory. A trickling thought flooded my soul amidst a hushed crowd and a speaking priest. I was young. A knock came to my door. I jumped, wrapped a towel around my body and opened it. Alfie, I muttered, while I rustled my hair. This played upon Alfie's overwrought nerves. A delightful expression gleamed from his face. The handsome Alfie, tall, well-built with lovely eyes, standing alone at my door in London. I rekindled a fire and gazed over it, reliving the warmth of the emotion I felt all those years ago. Nothing happened between Alfie and me, well, nothing of that nature. Alfie helped Dean, in his old life. We didn't get the chance to thank him because he disappeared. We suspected he might have perished. The burden I carried lightened over the years. See, I imagined that bullet that missed my head landed in his. A ghastly business, I'm sure you're thinking. Oh, it was a tad bit dark, but as Ma'am would say, enough of that, it's upwards and onwards. I searched for him. Alfie had not arrived. He said he'd be here. I wanted to ask him a few questions. How long has it been? I did the maths. 2 years passed since I penned the book. Frankie and Pitbull had yet to publish theirs. 10 years, oh my, 10 years since I saw Alfie. The priest spoke over the bread and wine. Then he added, "Pray, my brothers and sisters, that our sacrifice may be acceptable to God, the Almighty Father." We responded, "May the Lord accept the sacrifice at your hands, for the praise and glory of his name, for our good, and the good of his church." I looked around again. "Is everything okay?" whispered Dean. Kitty was a living example of a person who believed in God, declared the priest. "Yes." "Are you sure?" "I'm searching for Alfie." "So am I. He's not here," mouthed Dean. I glanced beyond Frankie and Pitbull. There he was, the London gangster staring headlong. He'd aged. He wore a dark coat, the locks of hair were graying and his beard was a mix of black and white. Alfie lived by 2 principles: never talk too much in public and be careful who you let into your life. The priest's words cut through my thoughts again. I'd known Kitty for over 3 generations. We wrote and emailed each other. There is only one thing given to us that has eternal value. Kitty lived through the power of the cross. She affected others for the good. Now, she is at home with God. She was a friend to poor lost souls. When he said that, I felt guilty. I was at the funeral of the woman who rescued me, and all I could think of was myself. The mass ended. We stood outside in groups. Alfie approached. "Blimey, girl, ye haven't aged a day. So I don't get a hug?" I laughed. After the embrace, it was handshakes and introductions. Dean gripped Alfie's hand. "Thanks, pal. Thanks for everything, you saved me life." Dean Jr. tugged at my arm, whispering, "Ma'am, what does Dad mean, thanks, you saved my life?" "Oh, it's a phrase adults use, like I was in the wars, in the trenches. Or if someone helped you with your homework, you'd say, 'Thanks, pal, you saved my life.' What was I to say?" "Oh, Dean, I meant to tell you, your dad, well, he was a bat-wielding madman in his youth. That man was your dad's pal, so to speak. Oh, and Mr. Picador was trying to sell your ma'am as a sex slave. But don't worry, son, it's all behind us." "Oh, look, there's Nanny and Granddad," I pointed, relieved to end that conversation. My parents were taking Dean Jr. out for the day. They pulled up on time. He ran toward them waving at Dean and me. We waved, while Mom mouthed, "No rush, don't hurry back, we've got him." I smiled and blew Mom a kiss. Then we walked to our car and drove to the Addison Lodge. The Addison Lodge is set opposite the Botanic Gardens. Inside, a three-seater sat to the left and the bar stood to the right, reflecting the light streaming through the window. We went to the far corner and stood under the twin lamps hanging above us. I'd closed a door on my past. I'd used my hand to bolt it shut, so to speak. Those old emotions had undergone change over the years. But one glimpse and the ghost of yesterday spoke there in that hour, upon that day, as Kitty slept in the earth. Chapter 2. The Secret Life of Ashley Brown soared to the place my father had predicted. Ashley, the book will go beyond the bins. I'd lost sight of the fact I was a well-known writer. There we were, the famous five, Frankie, Pitbull, Dean, Alfie and me. The children born from my pen, so to speak. They had returned from the land of the enemy. The pub was full. From the second we stepped through those doors, our party drew the crowd's attention. There was a line of people waiting to take selfies with us in them. How the dead are forgotten, I mused. I felt pity for Kitty. This was her time, not ours. We stole the limelight, not that she'd have cared, but I did. "Ah, the apple of my eye," a voice spoke. Turning, I replied, "Oh father." It was Father Joseph, Kitty's lifelong pal. We embraced and then Father Joseph shook the hand of each man. Sue, my friend, arrived. Sue was always late. That idea popped into my brain, when she said, "Sorry Ash, I'll be late for my own funeral." She flung her coat on the chair and greeted everyone with a nod, a smile, and a mumbling hi. "Come on, we're going to the bar," she whispered, grabbing my arm. Chatting our way across the floor, she flicked her head back, and said, "That's Alfie." "Yes, how did you know?" "He looks like a gangster, a nice gangster," she added. "You think? I suppose he does fit in with the Bugsy Malone gang over there." "Ha, ha, ha, your gas Ash," she gestured, giving me a slight elbow. "A glass of house white please," she continued, talking to the barman. When I saw my chance, I glanced at Alfie. He gripped my gaze. So did Dean. A lump in the throat moment. I flushed red at being caught by Alfie, my husband, and my best friend Sue. "Ash, have you got a?" "No Sue, don't be frivolous." "Frivolous? There is nothing silly about him over there. What I'm saying is," I paused, and said, "drink up, or they'll do us for loitering." "Can I get you anything?" the barman asked. "No, I'm fine, thank you." The barman winked and sauntered to the front of the bar. I was happily on the wrong side of 39. A lot of years had passed. As did mortgage repayments, nappy changing, bill paying and deadlines. The hammer and chisel stuff that chip away at romance. "Ash, you can talk with me, you know you can." "I'm talking now." "That's not what I mean." "What do you want me to tell you, a bit of juicy gossip?" "Ash." Sue uttered, appearing stunned. "I don't believe you said that." "There is nothing going on. Okay. I never assumed there was. Look. I like the guy. He saved Dean." I was at a loss for words. "Yes, that must have been a horrible time." "It was, but you know that." Sue's gaze drifted from me. Her eyes rested on Alfie, her new favorite subject. "Yes, I know the story. I read the book, but somehow it becomes more real when you see, what's his name again?" "Alfie." "Come on, we better go over there, or they'll be wondering what we are talking about," said Sue. "Trust me, they'd pick up a hint faster than a bolting horse coming out of the stalls," I replied through the side of my mouth, as we trudged towards their table. Dean placed his hand on my back and rudely broke into the conversation. He put on a voice. "Alfie, what do you think? Has my wife become more beautiful with age?" She is the vine, the maturing wine, the most famous writer of her generation. Alfie looked embarrassed. Frankie and Pitbull narrowed their eyes, sensing something was up, but Dean continued. Dean. I stomped, trying to control my anger. Could I have a word, please? Now. Sure. With an open palm, he pointed to the door with his face fixed on the ground. I led, he followed. Once outside, I stood like Mike Tyson ready to throw the first punch. How dare you, how bloody dare you? Ash, I was only paying you a compliment. I went to move. He took my arm. Get your hand off, I grumbled. Turning, I said, oh, so tell me, when did your friend Mr. Insecurity show up? Did you invite him, or is he a gatecrasher? I need get going, have to get back to work. Do you? Yeah, I said so. Can I ask ye something, Ash? What? In the book, you wrote that you answered the door to Alfie. What was it you were wearing? Oh yeah, a towel. Oh, no, not this again. We have been over and over this. Nothing happened, Dean. How do I know? I was out of my head somewhere. Dean, I'm not doing this, no way. Not today. As I walked away, he shouted, it's always about you. Ashley, it's always about you. Turning swiftly, I answered, no, Dean, it's not about me. And, it's not about you. It's about Kitty. Remember Kitty, the woman who saved my life? I stared at him and pointed to the door. That man Alfie in there, saved yours. He saved you. Silence. For the first time since that happened to him, I saw a tear fall on his face. All those years gone, and he never once allowed his lip to quiver as he recounted that story. There in the car park, something was breaking in him. A tear of grace had fallen. My heart ran toward him, but my feet stood still. I watched my husband. He saved you, I whispered. He nodded, wiped his eyes and walked away. Words the priest had spoken at Kitty's funeral came to me. He drew me out of many waters. He delivered me from my strong enemy. Is Dean okay? Called a voice behind me. It was Alfie. I stood upright, fixing my gaze on Dean and answered, he will be. My phone bleeped. I reached into my pocket, took it out, looked at the message and read, sorry, love you, Ash, we'll talk later. Me too, see you after, I replied. Dean disappeared out of view. Is he all right? Yes, Alfie, he'll be okay. It was cold, so I pulled my collar up, wrapping my overcoat around me. Alfie stood to my right. Our eyes met. His graying hair at the sides was like the silver strings on a violin. He is grateful for what you did for him. I paused. Alfie took hold of my coat with one hand and invited me to come close. He remained in my gaze as I did his. You are my secret, Ashley. Am I yours? The secret life of Ashley Brown untold? His accent brought me by the hand like a tour guide back to London. In my mind, I listened to the song, our song he called it. The light sweeping of the drums, the strong sound of the piano and the distant saxophone. I felt a rush. Ashley, I know I didn't come here to take you away. But I needed to find out something. Placing my finger on his lips, I said, hush, hush Alfie, I understand. Stepping back, I said, you never married? There was only one woman for me. The girl who jumped from that van many moons ago. I gazed at the ground through a side view. You are a good man, Alfie. He came alongside me and softly took my fingers, holding them as we walked. Tell me, if there was another time, in a different world, could there have been a chance? His voice sounded like one in desperation. I looked ahead. That's 10 years ago, I said, mine resembling more of a twinge of panic. As we got to the door he held it closed and said, tell me, Ash. I looked him straight in the eye. I smiled, and said, something tells me you already know the answer to that. Is that a yes or a no? If only life was that simple. That's not an answer. Alfie, I could use a friend right now. He paused. Sorry, Ash. Stepping closer, he put a friendly arm around me and gripped the door handle. I think you would like my friend. She is a lovely woman. What's her name? Sue. Her name is Sue. Oh, there's something I've meant to ask you. Yeah, and what's that? The night Picador and Shanky died, did you send the men? The men, where men? The men on the motorbike who carried guns. Nah, ye silly mare, it wasn't me. Did ye ask Dean? Yes, way back when, but he said, yes, it was me. I called them when I was in a coma. Are ye for real? Yeah, it couldn't have been him. Picador had a few enemies, so it could have been anyone. I guess, I said. I remembered the man who walked up to me. He held a handgun. He pulled my hands back from my face and then he strolled away. A question, Alfie, who leaves a witness alive? Yeah, stranger, right? Sue, you'll like Sue, you truly will, I whispered, diverting from the conversation. Once inside, I placed him next to Sue. She told him how we became acquainted. As she did, my mind drifted back in time. Chapter 3. Sue. Sue and I met in our young, carefree days. I first saw her standing over a computer in the office where we worked. She faced the wall as she mumbled over the word processor that wasn't working. Sue was 5 years my senior. She looked together in spite of her mumbling complaint. That's assuming you can figure a person's character through a twinkling gaze. Her skin was smooth and soft, her complexion appeared Indian. I could tell there was mixed blood somewhere in her history. The Irish woman with the foreign looks. She latched her eyes onto mine, dark brown and subdued. Or as men might say, seductively intriguing. That's probably not what they'd say, but that's my ladylike interpretation. Thank you very much. I was the 20-something girl who had arrived, full of dreams, living in my make-believe world. I borrowed a few phrases from a book I was reading and approached her. Hello, my name is Ashley Brown. I'm here to take the handbrake off and move this business at full speed. Oh, how silly I must have sounded. Where's your desk again? Oh, yes, there, over at the door. She stopped, raised her finger and pointed beyond me. Behind the door. Do us a favor and move your desk behind the door, there's a pet. Pet? I'm not your pet. No, no, no. I'm on the ball, the walking on fire woman soon to be a manager. The face of the new generation of businesswomen. I'm nobody's pet. Those were my thoughts, but I said, okay, thank you. An hour passed before she spoke again. Then she said, Lazier, can you clean my bins out on your way to where the engine is, so you can take the handbrake off? Please? That's not my job, and the name is Ashley. Oh, a bit below your speed limit. Ha, ha, ha. Only joking, Ashley. You are? Sue. I'm Sue baby. Baby? Is that Sue baby as in her name or is she calling me baby? I wondered. Do you want to grab a coffee, say, 1 o'clock? Yes, that would be lovely. Oh gosh, I hope I don't sound too intimidated. Over the next hour, I scribbled everything down in lightning speed, talking like Daffy Duck when I answered the phone. There was a clock on the wall and I watched every second that passed. 12.30, 12.45, 12.55, 1 o'clock. Yes. I grabbed my coat and headed out the door with Sue. We took the 10-minute walk to Stephen's Green, the New York, Central Park of Dublin. Sue brought me to a nutty coffee shop near the green. There were benches and barrels acting as tables and posters of old films hung in frames. From then on that coffee shop would be my private sneak-away place when I needed 5 minutes. Sue told me to grab the seats in the corner while she ordered the coffees. I did. A long mirror faced me. In that coming-of-age moment, I noticed the young woman. I was now required to become the multitasker. The flash-in-the-pan makeup artist, the future spotless housewife with well-behaved children. I'd do yoga in the morning, get the children's breakfast, make lunches, drop them to school, dash across town, find a telephone box, strip out of my Wonder Woman suit and head to the office. I'd work an 8-hour shift, get home, hoover, clean, make dinner, get the children to bed, and stand at the door with my husband's slippers in hand, as the hot bath runs. Sure, what's not to like? Is it black or white? Oh, it's never black and white, I thought. Just a drop of milk, no sugar. Sue smiled. I'd only met her, but I had a hunch that the smile was her way of saying sorry for her cutting remarks earlier. She placed the cups on the table and flung her coat on the empty chair. So, tell me all about yourself? She asked, pulling the chair towards herself and sitting down. Nothing to tell really, I said, taking a sip from the coffee. She crossed her legs, took her cigarettes from her bag and asked, "Do you mind if I smoke?" I thought it was nice of her to ask. No, not at all. Do you like the job? Yes, well, I'm only new as you know, but so far it is going well. Sue took a drag on her smoke. I took another sip. She followed suit. Hobbies, have you got any? Yes, I love art and writing. Oh, a budding artist and writer. Well, I wouldn't go that far. You never know. Did you ever read Joyce? Yes, I liked Dubliners. I never read it. It's a short book, isn't it? Yes, and as much as I love our homegrown giants, I have to say, for me, the best short book is Capote's Breakfast at Tiffany's. Oh, now you're talking. Love that film, Sue beamed. Me too. There's a rumor that Capote helped Harper Lee. Harper Lee? She smiled and stubbed out her smoke in the ashtray. I lost you there. Is he any relation to Bruce Lee? When she said that, I burst out laughing. She did too. The ice was broken, so laughing I ordered us another coffee. Bruce Lee, I jested, wondering if she was joking or did she not know who Harper Lee was. Surely she's joking. She lit another smoke and downed the coffee as the waiter came with another. Anything else? No thanks, I answered. So, Ashley, tell me all about this Harper Lee fellow. Oh, Harper, she's a lady. She wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. Now that's a classic film. I saw that years ago, on one of those nothing-to-do rainy Sundays. I had dinner, sat with my ma'am and watched it on TV. Loved it. Oh, look at the time, better not be late, come on. What's her face won't be too happy. Sue stopped talking and grabbed her coat. We downed the coffees and ran. Outside was like the rainy Sunday Sue had mentioned. I wondered about the expression, what's her face, never heard that before. Pulling her coat over both our heads, we headed back, laughing all the way about Harper Lee's imaginary brother Bruce. Thanks for sharing your secrets, jested Sue. What secrets? The Secret Life of Ashley Brown. Sounds like the title of a book. Who knows, maybe it will be one day. Who knows, I smiled. Chapter 4. Sue's husband built her mother's extension. He was a builder. Or should I say de-builder, the only builder. The nothing like him, builder. Sue told me, the moment she laid eyes on him dragging a bin across the garden, she knew he was the one. Not my idea of a spectacular romantic meet, laying eyes on a contractor dragging a bin across the patio. She said they were like passing buses on the motorway, or shopping trolleys heading along the same aisle. I heard of passing ships in the night, but buses and shopping trolleys, and bin dragging builders. From the laying of the foundations to the last coat of paint, the job took 3 months. John, the golden boy builder, had gone over his closing date. He said he'd finish the job in 2 months. According to Sue, the alpha male delayed the job so he could continue the chase. The more Sue talked about their early days, I envisioned John as a muscle-flexing caveman, the toned Fred Flintstone, the yabba dabba doo hunk that swept her off her feet. Sue insisted that her mother throw a party for a grand revealing of the new room. She did. The year was 1990. Ireland qualified for the World Cup. Italia 90 was an exciting time for a football nation. In April of that year, the Labour Party selected Mary Robinson as its candidate in the presidential election. The Celtic Tiger was chasing poverty away. The weather was great, and Sue was in love. John claimed he'd build her a fine house. He told her parents that one day he'd take over the construction industry, and he kept good to his word. He rose from extension building to building apartment blocks, becoming wealthy as he did. They married and lived loved up, or did they? Or, did he? Fast forward to today and then rewind back 6 months. This is where I come back into the story. I did an interview on the radio about my book, The Secret Life of Ashley Brown. I'd left my car at home, called a taxi and arrived on time. The interview went well. I hired another car and asked the driver to drop me off at South Great George's Street. I loved that part of the city, Drury Street, South William Street, Grafton Street, and the Green. As I sat in the back of the taxi on the way to South Great George's Street, I held myself with excitement. It was hard to restrain it. My book was doing great. I gazed out of the window at the crowds walking along Dame Street. 2 Garda on magnificent horses were in front. The radio in the car was playing. I looked to my right and allowed an image to jump into my head, recalling the first cup of coffee Sue and I shared, and the words we spoke. "Thanks for sharing your secrets," jested Sue. "What secrets?" "The Secret Life of Ashley Brown." Sounds like the title for a book. Who knows, maybe it will be one day. Who knows? Stepping from the car, I inhaled deeply. I spent the day visiting galleries, especially the one that was selling my art. Then I had lunch at the Westbury Hotel. I'd eaten a fine meal and I was about to leave when I saw Bob the Builder at a table near the window. An eager listener sat in front, dark-haired, well-toned 30-something. Her hand held her chin up and her eyes were all puppy dog. Her smile, false. I had a suspicion she was no client. The restaurant was a Parisian brasserie meets New York-style room. The table I was sitting at was beside a mirror. I watched her leave, running to the ladies, to powder her nose, I suspected. He had his back to me, so I took what was left of my coffee and sat at the table behind him. I put my sunglasses on, a thing I remembered Sarah used to do. Sarah was who Sarah was, an old friend in a different book. Anyway, 30-something came back talking all grand. "Oh yes, yes, my daddy drives a car like yours. Oh, my daddy's a builder too. Did anyone never tell you, you look like Tony Soprano?" I opened my lips and playfully stuck my 2 fingers in 3 times, mouthing, "Sick." "Well, love, now you say it. Yes, people even call me Tony. Ha, ha ha. See, between me and you, before I got into the building game, people called me a Yahoo," I whispered. "Gangster, but I found my way out, love, and made like the Greeks would say, make it straight bro." I'd love to know what Greeks he knew. I'm sure Sue would too. Greeks. I could hear her cry. Greeks, the only Greeks he ever met were on the telly. "Oh yes, I love a rough-cut man," 30-something said. "My gym has a lot of guys, but they lack the Tony Soprano stuff. Ha, ha, ha. Yes, oh, I do love pet names. I think I'll call you Tony." He deepened his voice, "Call me what you want to, love, but don't call me too early. Ha, ha, ha." He, oh you are a total blast, Tony." A phone rang, she answered. "I'm afraid I'm going to be late." "No, cancel that, I'm stuck at a meeting in town. I'll never make it back by that time." Then she dropped the name of the street. He cut across her with a whisper, "Follow me up to the room." I listened as his fast task rose. "I'll be there in a jiffy, Tony." "Ash, Are you still with us? Alfie's voice jolted me back to reality. I fixed my eyes on him. Yes, Tony. Oh, Alfie, sorry, yes. Where did you go, girl? On a stroll down memory lane. Voices from inside caught my attention. The "I'll be there in a jiffy," Tony, was drowning in a sea of laughter and clanging glasses. I was up in the office, in my own head, the place in which most of us live. I watched the picture of Bob the Builder and his 30-something pal as I sat ruminating there. Will I tell Sue? How could I? Every thought became hypnotic. I questioned my motives. Why was I playing Cupid with a married woman and my gangster friend? Sue rested her chin on her hand and pretended to be interested in every word pouring out of Alfie's mouth. They were worlds apart, not only geographically, but culturally, socially, and every which way. What was I doing? I couldn't answer that, or maybe I could. I had to tell Sue, but this wasn't the time or place. People still sneaked by looking for selfies of Frankie and Pitbull. Pitbull was enjoying the attention. Frankie wasn't. Frankie was an old man with a lot of secrets. Those secrets prevented him from publishing his book. Further, Joseph broke in and told us stories about an infamous character called Tommy Two Coats. It intrigued Alfie. He sipped his drink, turned his face and said, "I hear you wrote a book, Frankie." Frankie wasn't forthcoming with any information. He grunted, mumbled a few words and dismissed Alfie and his cut-across, interfering question. Oh, how embarrassing. Alfie must have felt terrible. I know I did. Frankie wasn't overgracious either. Dean texted, asking if everything was going okay. I replied, "Yes, fine, I'll buzz you later." He sent a smiley face. Then I jumped in, showing Alfie drawings and paintings I'd done featuring Frankie. I had the images on my phone. They're brilliant. Thank you. Daisy May would gut a person like a fish, Frankie broke in. He picked up his glass of water and examined the contents. Yeah, like a fish. She lived on the top floor of an old tenement house. Silence and attention came together. Intrigue hovered around us like a fly circling a light. I knew the story, I read the manuscript. But there was something very endearing and exciting when you hear the author's voice. I don't know why he just shot out those words. Maybe what Further Joseph said awoke something in him. He was a witness to the Dublin very few would believe existed. I was silently urging him on. Go on, Frankie, tell us your story. Were you born in Dublin, Frankie? Asked Sue. She was gentle, reaching out with a walking on eggshell question. Nah. New York. I was born in New York. Ashley, do you have the PDF version on your emails? He asked, referring to his work. Yes, I said, scrambling through my phone. Is the whole book on that? He asked, pointing to my phone, not able to fathom how 60,000 words could be on something so small. Of course. I opened my emails and found his book. Here, Frankie, let me show you how to scroll the pages. Every word I've written is in here, Ashley dear, he said, pointing towards his heart. Putting his glasses on, he momentarily gazed at his audience. Then taking my phone, he said, okay, let me tell yous all a story.